Now, we're continuing to talk about Gary Lineker and him ordering a BBC account to take down a post supposedly mocking Wayne Rooney.
Joining us now is John Mair, a former BBC producer who is due to release a book called How Do We Pay for the BBC After 2027? Damn good question, if I may say so, John. But we'll talk about that perhaps another time. But right now, what do you make of this extraordinary situation with Gary Lineker? Time and time again, almost taunting the BBC on social media. And this time, BBC Sport posts a perfectly harmless tweet about the Peaky Blinders ordering the sacking of Wayne Rooney. Just a little joke, really. Lineker posts, delete this, and the BBC does what he says. This is a leadership problem, isn't it? Isn't it time the BBC stressed to Gary Lineker, we are your boss, you are not our boss?
I will actually agree with you guys on this. I'm normally when you arguing in favour of Gary Lineker, but I think he's probably got a bit too big for the football boots this time around. You know, he's not the editor of BBC Sport website. He's the presenter. You know, he's a very well paid presenter. It's not for him to be ordering people around. If I were his agent, John Holmes, I'd take him aside and say, Gary, look, control yourself. Let's tape your fingers together so you can't do any tweets for several weeks or several months, because he's not doing himself any favours and he's not doing the BBC any favours with this. So you know, it's not a leadership question. Tim Davies made it quite clear where he stands as the chairman. I think Gary is pushing the limits. Yeah. Maybe Goal Hanger Productions is making a lot of money, but it's 1.3 million quid a stake in this. So maybe he does want to be fired. Who knows?
I mean, what on earth is Gary Lineker? I think he probably wants to be fired, because it seems to me that Gary Lineker is more interested in working for Gary Lineker, because he's certainly not helping the BBC. I mean, surely the BBC should show a bit of backbone and beat him to the punch.
Well, I mean, they've got social media guidelines, which we can all read. Tim Davies might think of bringing John Holmes into his office and kicking him around Gary Lineker, because the trouble is it's become about Gary Lineker, not about the BBC. And the BBC is actually much bigger than Gary Lineker. Much as you'd like to think otherwise. So but he's a brilliant presenter and worth every penny of 1.3 million. But somebody needs to rein him in and say, look, Gary, enough is enough.
I'm not sure that I agree he's worth 1.2 million,
but I do. Worth 1.2 pence.
No, I don't agree with that. I think John is right. He is a very good sports presenter, probably overpaid in my view, but like most people who work for the BBC, he professes to love it. I love the BBC, I love Auntie Beeb, but every time he does this, he embarrasses and humiliates the BBC. Can't they persuade him to stop this?
Well, I don't know if they can. I mean, this is a problem of talent, as you all know who appear in front of a camera. Talent, if left unchecked, becomes a monster. They all do. To appear in front of a TV camera, even you two, you have to have an element of a monster about you. I mean, my first job in television was working for Robin Day. Now, talking about monsters, he was a monster. So, and if he didn't get his way, he stamped his foot. And this is what Gary does. I mean, I think he's gone beyond a red line here. This is not.
Talking about monsters, it is, of course, an election year, and so the whole I-word impartiality is going to be utterly critical to the BBC. There's fresh blood in as BBC chairman. How important is it for the BBC to get this right?
Well, the BBC seem to be impartial. I mean, I don't think a sports presenter needs to be impartial, but in the news and current affairs, it will be impartial. I've worked on election programs. You count the minutes, you count the seconds that people are on. Question Time, which I worked on, was invented to give Robin Day something to do, but also to give party political leaders a chance to have a platform. So impartiality is vital. And actually, the vast majority of people in news and current affairs are very impartial. I'm not sure people in sport should be impartial, but this is a management problem at the level of sport. The head of Phillips ought to take Gary aside and say, no, come on, Gary, enough is enough. Stop doing this. A bit like a child. Otherwise, you will be firmly on the naughty step.
I think you're absolutely right, John. Something's got to be done. Thank you very much. That's John Mair, former BBC producer. Robin Day was a monster, according to John.
Apparently we're monsters.
We're monsters. We're very difficult to handle.
Monster?
You wait for my tweets. I tweet about me falling over in the wind. I don't challenge my employers.
Well, I sit next to you every day and you're a pussycat under.
Thank you very much.
Absolute sweetheart.
Now you've ruined my entire image.
I know, well...